Come on, let's go live. We are live. All right. Fig, in the top right corner where it says end stream, in the unlikely event that I don't make it to the end of this show because it's blowing like you read about here. We're getting gusts to 40 knots, and I've got battery backup on stuff, but I got knocked off like twice yesterday. I got knocked completely off. So if that happens at the end of the, just continue on with the show, end it when you end it, and I'll still get it.
Okay, and just hit end stream when we're done.
Yeah, I think when you do hit end stream, it'll say, "Hey, do it twice." So, all right. I think everything else is pre-briefed. Bago, do you have any questions, comments, or remarks? I do. Oh no, I didn't get any. Tell you what, you guys chat for just a minute while I get his pictures up here because. Oh no, I do have them up. They're at the top, right?
I've got some thrown in here.
Yeah, you've got them. Okay, I'm going to put a couple more up there. Go ahead and delete all of last week's images, and I'll add some more.
They should be gone.
Oh, let me refresh then, because I'm seeing. No, I can't refresh. It'll cut me off. I'm seeing all the Cobra stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah, on my end, those are all gone. I've got his books, his planes, some other stuff on here as well.
All right, so let me. I think it's going to let me do it. Yeah, so I just uploaded the pictures that he sent me. They're coming up now.
Yep, I got him. Cool.
Greetings, Dizzy. Welcome aboard. All right.
All right, Dizzy's here.
Yeah.
Woo. Oh, yeah.
All right, I promise we're getting ready to do it now. I'm resetting my timer. We're going to go there. Going to go there. Notes. Where are notes? Okay.
Well, I'm going to jump in the back.
All right, sir. We'll see you on the back side, Bago. Okay. And where did I hide it? There it is.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Air-to-air combat is the ultimate thrill ride. An e-coupon, a mainlined adrenaline fix. 6 Gs, followed instantly by 0 Gs, with the sky and the ground trading places in the canopy overhead in a matter of seconds. My job as the Gib was to keep my eyes peeled for other aircraft and to stay awake when I weighed effectively 1,000 pounds under 6 Gs and when I could barely keep my head up. Practicing air combat is the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
Yeah, there I was. I was leading a flight of 4 Jaguars. I was with the Royal Air Force. We were at low level in the Great Glen of northern Scotland over Loch Ness, proceeding down Loch Ness in a finger 4 formation, tactical formation, at our normal ops condition of 480 knots, 250 feet, and keeping a lookout for the monster, gun cameras armed. And the weather was stinko, overcast, getting lower and lower, and pushed us down to 200 feet, pushed us down to 100 feet, and now we're 100 feet over Loch Ness. And I looked up in the distance, and I could see the fog reaching all the way down to the water of Loch Ness. And I knew that we had to be in the clouds one way or the other in just a few seconds. And that's when I called for the pull-up. And it took a flight of 4 in tactical formation into the soup, but the encounter did not end as I had planned.
My palms are sweating already. Hello, you're listening to the podcast. So there I was, and that is how all terrifying aviation stories start. This is Fig coming to you from my Well, my home, finally. I'm home after 6 or 7 days. And where's my co-host?
Nice. Yeah, repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire, also home. And oh my God, for any of you who have not flown tactical, particularly in formation with the weather going to shit on you, that story echoes terror in my heart. Oh, dear God. So that is Fast Eddie. We're going to welcome Fast Eddie, author of 5 books, War for the Hell of It, A Fighter Pilot's View of Vietnam, The First Fighter Pilot, Roland Garros, The Life and Times of the Playboy Who Invented Air Combat, The Pilot, Fighter Planes in Paris, Fly with the Falcon, Love, Loss, Liberty, and I Live to Tell the Tales, The Life of a Fighter Pilot. And let me tell you, the excerpt you heard at the beginning was from one of those books. And oh man, are they fun reads. I'm having a ball going through them now. So Fast Eddie, welcome, sir. We are humbled and honored for you to join us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. So, but you didn't start off as a fighter pilot in Vietnam. Where did you realize that maybe flying airplanes was something that was you wanted to do?
Well, I can never remember not wanting to fly them. Since I was 6 or 8 years old, it appealed to me. And, I grew up the usual way. I built model airplanes. I, read everything I could read. I particularly focused on the Battle of Britain because I was very interested in the Battle of Britain. But I think I read every aviation book that you can find back in the early 1950s. And got a job at the airport servicing aircraft. I worked on Jimmy Hoffa's airplane, which is another story.
Nice.
But, and then I went to Georgia Tech and went through Air Force ROTC, got accepted for pilot training. And I can tell you with exquisite detail where I was and what I was doing when I got those orders.
Oh, nice. All right. Very cool. Is it publicly shareable?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, let's hear it. Where were you? What were you doing?
Yeah,
what'd that feel like?
Well, I walked by the Air Force ROTC office, and a sergeant came out and said, "Here's your orders." And I didn't want to open them right there because I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. I didn't know if I'd get assigned to, run the PX or something. And so I went outside the headquarters and started walking down the sidewalk towards the dorm and opened the orders. And there it was, Webb Air Force Base, undergraduate pilot training.
Nice.
Wait, okay, I'm not familiar with Webb. Where was that?
Neither am I.
It was in Big Spring, Texas, way out in West Texas near Odessa and Midland.
Okay.
Since closed now, but not a garden spot.
No.
Unless you like growing cactus in your garden.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. And probably some tumbleweeds too. All right. So graduated off to undergraduate pilot training.
Right.
Was it T-37s, T-38s? Or what'd you fly primary? Was T-37 your primary trainer?
No. You start out in the T-41, which is militarized.
172.
Yeah, 172.
Yeah.
And that was just called the propeller-driven washing machine, just to eliminate people who weren't really suitable. And then it's T-37, T-38.
Okay. Anything memorable from there? Oh, was it? I think it was your book I was reading about the tying the wrong knot and what would you do if you had to abort? Yeah.
In the check ride in the T-41 was given by a Air Force lieutenant instructor, and so we started out with the briefing, and he said, "What would you do if you had to abort?" And I said, "I'd chop the throttle and stand on the brakes." And he said, "That's not the procedure." And the procedure written down was throttle close, brakes apply. And I told him, I said, "You didn't ask me for the procedure. You asked me for what I do." That didn't go over well.
Oh, that set the tone right there.
that set the tone right there. And without getting into all the gory details, I thought I did all right, but at the end and during the debriefing, he, reamed me a new one about not quoting the procedure, and he proceeded to criticize the knot that I had tied the aircraft down with. so that kind of summarized the way the check ride went.
I had water coming out my nose. I was laughing so hard. I had to get out of the way because I thought it was going to come out onto the screen. Okay, that really, I was there when you told that story.
Right. We never had instructors like that, did we, Fig?
Nope. No.
Except every other day.
Jeez. Right?
Oh, man. Anything memorable in flight school? Close calls or anything like that? Yeah.
No, there was one episode first off, about 2 weeks into the T-37 phase, we lost a couple of guys. They started a loop at minimum altitude, and a loop in the T-37 is an altitude losing maneuver. And they didn't make it. And that was kind of a wake-up call. It was like, okay, kid, you're in the big leagues now. We play for keeps here. That got my attention. And then the other thing that happened that kind of set the tone, we took a couple of T-38s up to Buckley Air Force Base, Colorado Springs, dual use field. We were taking off 2 airplanes. I called for the active. They cleared us under the duty. And then a civilian aircraft called in for landing instructions on the same other frequency, but the tower answered them on both frequencies. And so he gave me the landing instructions, and he said, use caution, Air Force jet fighters on takeoff roll. And I put my head in a swivel and looked around and said, Air Force jet fighters, where? And the instructor said, that's us, you moron.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Well, so it's good. It's good to know it wasn't just the Navy instructors that were that way, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's us, you moron. That's almost a show title there, but yeah, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff. So, all right. When you finished flight school, how is it you came to select F-Force?
Well, that was one of those things which you didn't work out, but eventually did. I ended up that a limb ride in the T-41 was followed by a limb ride in the T-37, which was followed by a limb ride in the T-38, most of which were due to the fact that I like to do things my way and not the Air Force way.
Ooh.
Like at T-38, one of the check rides was landing stage, and you had 3 landings that were graded for mobile control. And what I like to do with the 38 was just kind of float it down and gently touch down and call a tower and ask if we were down yet. But that puts you 2,000 or 3,000 feet down the runway. And the procedure was they wanted you to put them down on the piano keys, or on the number.
Okay.
And so I got a down check on that. I had to redo it. Anyway, I ended up ranked in my class, and you make choices. You put on your dream sheet what you'd like to fly, and 3 or 4 of the guys ahead of me who had not run afoul of the authorities had put down F-100s. And they all got F-100s, and I was a little bummed about that because I wanted to fly a single-seat fighter. And then I got assigned to the back seat of the F-4, which was, Plan B, but it turned out to be a good deal for 2 reasons. One is the guys that got the F-100 checked out at Luke, went to South Vietnam, flew a year of close air support, and then there was nowhere for them to go because all the F-100s were in South Vietnam. And so they came back and they got assigned to the training command or the F-111 for crying out loud, or, something like that. And it turned out to be, kind of a dead end career flying wise in the F-100. Anyway, I got to the F-4, and holy cow, it's big and it's ugly and it's fast, and you can get it to. I've had one to 2.4. That.
Damn.
Yeah. Here we are in the real Air Force with real frontline fighters. And the other thing that worked out was when I went overseas to Thailand, 8th Tech Fighter Wing, the Wolfpack. Most of the guys in the front seat were old heads. We had one guy that had 13 kills in Korea. We had 3 guys that had flown with the Thunderbirds, F-100 pilots, and those guys knew what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
So I'm in the back seat, and I'm tapping their brains. I'm saying, well, why did we do this? I mean, what was your decision here? What the hell is that for? And I learned a hell of a lot, being in the back seat with guys in the front seat that were actually old pros. And so that worked out well. So I'm kind of glad I busted all those check rides.
All right. So hey, Dizzy's asking, was that Robin Old's wing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Were you there concurrently?
No. He had just left. I knew Olds, but I never flew with him. I knew most of the guys on the Operation Bolo, but that was before I got there.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And was Operation Bolo that
was the fake out, right?
The trickery.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, they'd done a tactics conference at a bar in Bangkok with the F-105 guys.
That's the place to do a conference.
Yeah. And came up with a plan. The Vietnamese knew who they were bouncing. They had radar coverage. They had radio coverage. And so the plan was and they would bounce the F-105s and avoid the F-4s because the F-4s were the mid-cap. And so they came up with a plan to present the F-4s like they were a formation of 105s.
Yeah. And
so they came down Thud Ridge. They flew the Thud routes. They flew the Thud airspeeds. They used the Thud call signs, and just talked to each other like the Thud guys did. And then that's what happened. When that happened, they got jumped by 7 MiG-21s, which was the entire MiG-21 Air Force in North Vietnam, and they bagged all of them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
All right.
Very cool. All right. We God, such a varied career. I mean, where we're going to go with all of this, I'm just giddy with with questions. My one of the questions I had is we opened the book and I live to tell the tale. You open it with your night flight as a sewer doer, as you called it.
Yeah.
Flying the sewer pipe into Laos. What were you doing? And can you? I won't spoil it. Can you tell us what happened that night? That was a changing event.
Yeah, that's the opening chapter of War for the Hell of It.
War for the Hell of It. I'm sorry. I'm reading both at the same time, so I'm going to intermix those. Apologies.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to pass the quiz then. But anyway, we were trying to interdict the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And the idea was I had the flares. I was going to put out the flares over a road intersection. And my wingman had the bombs and CBU-24s. And the idea was I put out the flares. As soon as the flares light, he rolls in. Hopefully, when you did that and you did it right, you could look down on the roads below, and it looked like when you walk into your kitchen and you switch on the lights and all the cockroaches are there,
Yeah.
And so
scampering out of the way.
Yeah. Anyway, so I put out the flares and then pulled up to the left to circle back around for another flare run. And then I saw his airplane hit the ground. And that, that was again, an attention getting step that said, okay, we're not screwing around here.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so did he was that pilot error or did he get shot down? Do you know?
It was probably pilot error because we didn't see any AAA in the area.
Okay.
And the guy in the front seat, it's really sad. The guy in the back seat was the wing commander's son, and he flew his first combat mission with his dad. Anyway, the guy in the front seat was a ex F-102 pilot, who'd spent his whole career at 50,000 feet, and he was not into ground attack, and he was not into night flying, and it scared the living shit out of him. He went ahead and did it. He was the bravest guy I ever met, and so my view is that he just got overwhelmed and flew out of the sky and into the world.
Bombing under flares at night is not for the meek.
No.
I
in
know
mountainous
that
terrain.
No,
Yeah,
right?
in the mountains. In the mountains.
Come on. We were doing it in where it was flat. It's still not fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
No kidding. And you stayed on station for a substantial amount of time.
Yeah, I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
Is that a normal? Was that a normal rotation, or did you volunteer for an extra one?
I volunteered for another one.
Okay.
I was having so much fun, I had to quit.
What kind of aircraft do you call it? The sewer pipe?
Well, the deal was, and it was a smart deal, is if you were night flying, that's what you did for at least a month. And so you didn't have this jet lag getting back and forth, and losing sleep. So us guys that flew at night only flew at night. And, we had tried to get our esprit de corps up. And we had read about in South Vietnam, they had these guys called sewer rats, and they had the Viet Cong tunnels everywhere. Yeah. And their job, they were little wiry guys, like 5'7", 5'6", and they'd go into these tunnels with a flashlight and a 45 pistol and take out the Viet Cong. And we were in awe. We thought, man, those guys have got big brass ones. And so they call themselves sewer rats. And so we equated that with flying at night in the sewer. So we were the sewer doers.
All right.
Yeah.
Or out.
Beautiful. And but all your time over there, you said you spent. You were stationed in Thailand.
Yeah, Ubon, Thailand. Yeah.
Nice. Now that somewhere in your book, I read something about, and we talked about it on another show. It was the Da Nang Open Officers Mess, the Doom Club.
The Doom Club.
Did you make it over there at all? Were you in Da Nang? Did I read that in your book?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, everybody. It's all meshed together. Yeah. I shouldn't try to read two books at once. That's
I was there a week, and that was enough.
Yeah.
I had the most extraordinary interview with the DO or the wing. There's three new guys. We just signed into the wing. We went through the new guy school, and then we had an interview with the DO. And he sat behind his desk, which was completely clean, nothing on the desk, which tells you something right there. And he said, in this wing, no one is better than anyone else. No pilot is better than any other pilot. I will not tolerate competition between pilots. I will not tolerate competition between squadrons.
Oh,
and I'm thinking, I got to get out of this chicken shit outfit.
Right.
And so that's it. That's the Doom Club there.
Wow.
There used to be
a picture of it up on the.
Yeah, there used to be a Mark 82 high drag stuck in the grass in front. But anyway, I called over to Ubon and said, "Can you get me out of here?" And they were having we were dropping laser guided bombs. We introduced the laser guided bomb to the world, and they were having trouble with success. The initial success was good, and now they were having trouble with it. And I had done quite a bit of the LGB bombing, and they said, we need somebody that can fix this. And I said, "Can you get me there?" And they said, "Yeah, I think so." I packed my bag, collected my flying gear, went over to the aerial port, got on a Marine C-130 and flew to Ubon. No orders, no permission. I went AWOL to Thailand, and I'd been there about 10 or 15 days when my orders kept caught up with me.
Nicely done.
Could you imagine doing that today?
Oh,
No.
Oh,
no.
Especially not in the Air Force. I mean, it'd be tough in the Marine Corps, but the Air Force, it just, the bureaucracy would be.
Somebody would pop a gasket.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
How much you do talk a little bit about the bureaucracy, and you try to leave politics out of it as much as you can, but you're pretty harsh, and I'll say, I believe rightfully so, on the fact that politicians and desk flyers back in Washington were trying to run so much of this war without any regard to what was really happening on the ground over there. How much of that was on your mind and in your mind while you were physically present, or did your feelings evolve as you got home after getting home?
Yeah, I knew it was going on, but
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of busy to think about politics, and it was really aggravating, the rules of engagement that we had to follow. And there was one time when we had unilaterally declared a bombing halt in North Vietnam, thinking that the Vietnamese would respond equally and back off, which of course they didn't. And late in the day, you could fly around down the Laos, North Vietnamese border and see convoys of trucks backed up into North Vietnam, waiting for night to cross over into Laos and to go down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And so you had a stream of targets, 30 or 40 trucks just over the border, and you couldn't touch them. And
Unbelievable.
And they had, munitions that were going down to kill GIs in South Vietnam. And that kind of yanked our chain. But when you're doing stuff like that, you can't let the politics affect your performance. You just have to.
Right.
You either. And I had a pilot training buddy that he was against the Vietnam War. I mean, he said, this is a big mistake. We're throwing people's lives away. We ought not to be here. But he went and did a tour. 1 year tour in Vietnam, then came back and put in for conscientious objector status. And he got it. I said, "Why the hell didn't you do that before you went in combat?"
Right.
He said, "I didn't want anybody to think I was a coward."
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Impressive. I'll give him that. So, no kidding. Well, without trying to jump around too much, you obviously flew in the Air Force.
Right.
You flew with the Navy. So you taught at weapons school. You taught at Top Gun.
Right.
You did an exchange tour with the Royal Air Force, the French
Right.
Air Force,
Right.
the Imperial Iranian Air Force.
Right.
And on top of that, 375 combat flights in
right
in Vietnam. What was the most difficult and or the most interesting? So that may be two questions.
Oh yeah. Well, leaving aside combat, which is both the most interesting and the most difficult, instructing in the weapons school was a challenge, and the challenge was keeping ahead of the students, because the guys coming to the weapons school were the best in their squadron, and they're going to come there and show you what they're made out of, and
sure.
So you had to keep on top of it. I've instructed in 3 different weapons schools, and the people in them are interchangeable. They're all the same guys, now it's all the same people. I can't say guys anymore.
Sure.
But that was the challenge, and at that time, the rewarding part of it was another guy and I rewrote the U.S. Air Force air-to-air tactics manual, and so that was that was, I thought that was a rewarding thing to do. But another story, the guy that replaced me in the air-to-air business in Las Vegas decided that he wanted to rewrite the air-to-air tactics manual, and which he did a good job. He actually did a better job than we did. And he started out by interviewing every air-to-air combat veteran he could find, and he was trying to uncover the secret. What are the principles, not airspeeds and altitudes, but what are the mindset, what are the principles, what's the overall framework of air-to-air combat. And he found that in Las Vegas, there was a 93-year-old retired guy from the Army Air Corps from World War One who had flown biplanes in World War One. And he went and interviewed him, and he said, what he was doing, what's the secret to air combat? And the guy said, the secret is watch out for the Hun in the sun.
That's the secret sauce right there.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, another show title. Oh, fantastic. Wow, right. Yeah. Someone using
the Hun in the sun. So hey, Fast Eddie, the air-to-air tactics manual, was that aircraft specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
F4.
were writing it for the F4. Okay.
Correct.
How much time did you have in the Phantom before you went and taught at weapons school?
1,000 hours.
Okay. So feeling pretty comfortable with it by then.
Well, I knew where all the switches were.
Right. Well, that comes from doing it at night, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's the average? What's the average combat sortie? A 0.9 or a 1.2 or
no? Nearly half the time you'd be refueling. So you're talking about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, depending on what you're doing.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you guys fly with drop tanks at all, or was it just weapons on your stations?
Nearly always with drop tanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and to get into North Vietnam and back, even if they were refueling, I mean, you're looking for 450 all the time, and that really eats up the fuel.
Sure. Yeah. The Phantom was not a fuel efficient bird.
No.
Faster than hell.
So Fast Eddie, were the majority of your combat sorties air-to-ground sorties? Did you do air-to-air caps? Or
only a few times. It was almost always air-to-ground.
Okay. Well, and were your targets up north?
North Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia. I never dropped a bomb in South Vietnam. We were high threat area specialists, high angle, high altitude release, and we weren't allowed to work friendlies in contact because they might not stay friendly very long.
Tend to piss them off when you hit your own guys, right?
Right.
Oh man.
So you're bombing military targets, bridges, ammunition dumps, things like that.
And a lot of it was, again, it was a waste. It was interdicting dirt roads. You dig a big crater in a dirt road and stop the trucks from going, and the next morning the crater's all filled in and truck tracks across it.
That's got to be.
That's got to be. Yeah. My sentiments exactly.
Yeah.
So okay. How many hours total did you wind up with in the Phantom?
16, nearly 1,700.
Okay. And then total time in all the airplanes?
About 2,500.
Nice. Okay. And was the Phantom your favorite? You flew Jags?
Well, that's a long story. And I get to ask that question a lot. I flew the F-104 with the Germans for a while. And like I said like you said in the opening, flying the F-104 is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. And then I finished up my career flying the F-16 at the Tucson Air Guard. And I was in my late 40s, at 48 or 49 when I did it, and that probably could have been the favorite. But flying the F-16 when you're 48 years old, it was like dating a porn star.
Yeah.
There was more performance there than I could physically access.
Yeah.
And I'd come back from a sortie, aching.
Oh, I bet.
So the Phantom, I've got the same number of landings as takeoffs. I got 1,000 hours of combat time. So that's the favorite.
That's saying something.
Yep.
It's an awesome plane. I envy you for being able to fly that thing. I can only imagine.
Yeah. What a cool beast. Is there any airplane that you haven't gotten to fly that you would have liked to have flown?
I would like to have flown the F-15. That's kind of the successor to the Phantom, multi-mode, big, loud, fast, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I remember the first time I'd been around A4s a lot with a family member in flight school down in Beeville, seeing the A4, and then walked out on the New Orleans ramp, and there was a Phantom sitting in there, and I'm like, oh my God, that thing is huge.
Yeah,
I had no idea how much bigger it was.
That's right.
And I had to
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a similar experience. I went down to Fatima in Okinawa for an air show and walked up to an Eagle for the first time. I'm like, oh, damn, that's a whole lot of airplane.
Right. Yeah.
Thing is huge. But what amazed me more is how quickly they disappeared when they turned nose onto you in the sky. Yeah. They block out the sun and plan for them, and then they come nose on and they just disappear.
Well, that's the strategy we used in an F-104. Bounce a guy in an F-104, plug in the afterburner minimum stage to erase the smoke trail, descend so you put him a little above the horizon so you're against the ground, and then you fly collision course, because in collision course it's constant bearing, decreasing range.
Yep.
And
head no movement on for his eye to pick up.
Yeah, and head on an F-104 is only this big,
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. All right. So, well, what did you do after Vietnam? Well, do we want to stay in Vietnam for a little while longer? Anything else notable over there?
No. I'm tired of Vietnam.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So, well, where'd you go next? Did you do an exchange tour, or is that when you went to weapons school?
Yeah, I went to weapons school. I went through the weapons school and stayed on as an instructor. And I was there for about 3.5 years. And during that time, the Air Force came to the conclusion that the Navy had figured out something that we didn't know, and sent me down to Top Gun. And I checked out as an adversary pilot in Top Gun. And I was supposed to come back to Nellis and tell everybody what the Navy was up to.
Did you?
Yeah, well, that what I learned at Top Gun is what I put into the tactics manual. Yeah. They were way ahead of us. There's no doubt about it.
No kidding. All right. Yeah. And my understanding is it's all joint now. They actually talk to each other now, right?
Well, I would hope so. Yeah.
So, all right. What was clearly a slacker if you stayed on as an instructor after going through the weapons school course, because you can't send that guy back to the fleet. So no, in all seriousness, and you said it was hard to, that it was challenging to teach, and I would imagine because of the caliber of students coming through.
That's right.
Was there anything notable that led to that revelation, or was it just a grind the whole time?
Well, it was obvious from the guys showing up, but one of the things I count myself lucky at, and I flew with Randy Cunningham, the Navy ace, and I flew with Steve Ritchie, the Air Force ace, and learned a lot from both of those guys. Yeah, there's Duke and Irish, and when you have that in your resume, people tend to listen to you, and that worked out.
Nice, very cool. All right, where'd you go after that?
Well, I wasn't ready to quit flying, and I thought about getting an exchange tour. And there's an office in the headquarters in San Antonio that runs exchange program. And he said, you can go to Canada and fly the F-104. And I thought that's kind of a step back. The F-104 is kind of a 50s airplane. And the base is at a place called Coal Lake. That's all I needed to know about that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me think about that. No.
Yeah. And then the next one was in New Zealand, and I'd flown the A4 at Top Gun, and the New Zealand Air Force was, flying A4s then, and that was kind of an appeal. But my wife looked at the globe and said, "If we go there, we'll never see anybody we know," And so that didn't fly. But the one I was really interested in was with the Royal Air Force, because, like I said, I'd been a huge student of the Battle of Britain and all the traditions and all that. And so they sent me to the Jaguar, called the OCU. I mean, it was a conversion unit. So we trained Jaguar pilots. And then once a year, we had what the RAF calls a weapons instructor, qualified weapons instructor. It's like our patch wearing guys. And, and so we trained them. But that was, it was like I'm in a world which I read about, but I had never been there. I met Sir Douglas Bader. I met Johnny Johnson. I knew guys that flew the Spitfire. I knew guys who were in I knew guys who were in the Battle of Britain,
I bet that was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And so that was really a career broadening experience, flying with the Royal Air Force.
And were you flying at Lakenheath?
Lossiemouth, Scotland.
Oh, in Scotland. Okay.
Yeah. The only thing between us and the North Pole was a few oil rigs.
Wow.
Right.
Jaguar. So that's a 2-seat. That's a trainer, right? Was it a 1-seat and a 2-seat version?
Yeah,
like for attack, or was it just a 2-seat trainer?
It started out as a 2-seat trainer, and then the Chancellor of the Exchequer said, we're paying £5 million a piece for an airplane with no combat, and so they converted, took out the front cockpit and put in 2 guns and made it a ground attack airplane, and so eventually the majority of Jaguars were single seat.
Okay.
How
did it perform? Did you like flying it? I mean,
No.
the 8. Oh, you did not like it.
Hold on, think about that for a while.
Hold on. So, could you just, get why? Tell us why.
Well, I enjoyed the mission.
Sure.
At that time, the Royal Air Force was really hurting for money. They always are, but their whole mission was low-level ground attack, day VFR only, and that's kind of an exciting mission. 480 at 250 feet. But the aircraft, as I said, was originally designed as a 2-seat trainer. And when they converted it to a combat airplane, the compromises that they had to do were really severe. For example, you're in a combat airplane, the cockpit structure all around you, the metal cockpit structure is magnesium.
Oh, we know about that.
Yeah. Your G suit is inflated with 100% oxygen, and your oxygen regulators in the middle of your chest with a high-speed oxygen or high-pressure oxygen line leading to it. And I made up my mind that the first whiff of smoke in the cockpit and I'm out of there.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That
Things
does
could get
sound-
hot real quick.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they didn't really have enough money to properly develop the airplane. They put a laser rangefinder in it for bomb dropping. The guns didn't work. The ECM gear wasn't installed. Eventually, they made a reasonable combat airplane out of it, and it did well in Desert Storm. But when I was there, I was in the second class to fly the Jaguar, and it had a long way to go. But it handled well, and it was really fast. I mean, a normal mission was an hour 45 at 480 and 250 feet. So you could go a long way very fast at low altitude.
Nice tour of the countryside. And that's when you could see, though. But we opened over Loch Ness. Nessie didn't reach up and grab you, but how did you unscrew that situation? You got 4 of you in the goo now.
Well, it was a kind of a joyride. The French Air Force flew the Jaguar, of course. They have a different version, but it was a Jaguar. And they came over to fly with us. And so I was leading a 4-ship, and number 2 was a Scotsman named McDonnell, and 3 and 4 were Frenchmen in their own airplanes. And good guys. I mean, they're all fighter pilots are interchangeable, so they fit right in. And so the plan was to go to the northern part of Scotland, wind our way through the glens there, hit the Great Glen south of Inverness, fly down the length of Loch Ness and look for the monster, and then come back through the Cairngorms and land. And the weather was supposed to be marginal in the northern part of the route, but less than marginal in the southern part of the route. And so I briefed a procedure that we would use if we encountered the weather. And I briefed it in French, and I briefed it in English, and I briefed it in Francais. And hopefully I got 2 of the guys, and Frenchmen seemed to understand what I was saying. And so the plan was, if we hit the weather, we would be in finger 4 formation. If I call for the pull up, we were to pull up into the weather and come out on top. And number 2 was to turn 10 degrees off of my planned heading. 3 turns 10 degrees the other direction off the planned heading. 4 turns 20 degrees off the planned heading. And so we're going up through the clouds with diverging flight paths, just like you did. That was the plan. Okay. So I saw the fog on Loch Ness, and I called for the pull up, and the standard procedure was 30 degrees of pitch, full reheat until you get out on top, whole 450 till you get out on top. And so I got out on top about 13,000 feet, and I looked over, and there's Sandy McDonnell where he should have been, and I didn't see the Frenchmen. I mean, I looked at where they're supposed to be, and they weren't there. And I'm thinking, holy cow, they hit the ground. I mean, geez, this is going to be bad for my career.
Right.
And then I looked, and the 2 Frenchmen were on the other side of number 2.
Oh, shit.
They had passed through the formation in the clouds, reversed from one wing side to the other.
Like this.
Yeah, exactly. and
Merde.
and thinking back on it, as I climbed back through the clouds, there was a dark shadow over the airplane and then a bump of turbulence. And I thought it was just normal thunderstorm sort of stuff. But then later I figured out it was a Jaguar going over the top of
gosh.
the canopy.
I guess it wasn't your day.
No. And so we went back and landed. And usually these sort of flights are debriefed at the bar. But I insisted on a detailed debriefing. I wanted to know what the hell happened, And the bottom line was the Royal Air Force Jaguars had an inertial platform, and we flew on true north. The French Jaguars did not. They flew on mag north, and the variation in Scotland is what? 10 degrees. And so I had briefed a trinational midair, but it didn't work out.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'm glad that didn't happen because
Yeah.
that,
One for lack of trying, huh?
That's right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh.
that was a no shit fleur de lis.
Yep. Yeah. No, I flew with the French, and that was fun. I enjoyed doing that, but they had a different approach to combat than we did.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
Yeah. Anything else notable about the Royal Air Force tour?
No, I mean, there's all kind of stories, but again, it was worthwhile with their traditions and their, they've been in the combat business since 1912, and
Sure.
it's they said I got to meet a bunch of guys that I only read about, so that was worthwhile.
That right there is probably worth the ticket.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ever learn to understand the Scots? Asking for a friend.
Well, that's another story. I've been there about a week. And the little fishing village we were in didn't have a supermarket. You had to do the shops. They had a baker and a butcher and a greengrocer and all that. And so my job Saturday morning, first Saturday morning we're there, was to go to the butcher shop and get something to eat. And so I'm standing in line at the butcher shop, and there's 3 or 4 Scotch ladies standing in front of me. And I realize I can't understand a word they're saying. Not one word.
Yeah.
At first, I thought they were speaking Gaelic, but we weren't in a Gaelic area. It was you just couldn't get it. And so I'd watched, and this lady would walk up to the butcher, say something to him. They would both look out the window, look back in, and he'd say something to her. And I said, they're talking about the weather, And so when I got number 1 in line, the Scotch butcher looked at me. I looked out the window and I said, do you think it'll rain? And then he looked back in and he said, no, laddie, it's clear today. He could switch from English to Scots just instantly, But when he was speaking Scots, forget it. But
it's we went on a cruise last summer, and it was funny. The guy down in Spain, one of our tour guides, was like, look, I understand the Brits, the Aussies, the Americans, everybody except the Scots. He goes, when the Scots come here, it's the damnedest thing. He says, none of us can understand.
Right.
No, and the fastest way to spool a Scotsman up, especially if he's had a few pints, is to say, are you speaking English? Oh,
oh yeah.
Oh, that's not the way you go.
Yeah.
And being as my middle name is MacDonald.
Yeah.
I am a Scot, and so I'm just poking fun at us.
Oh yes.
But I can't speak that fluently.
Yeah.
How many years did you fly in the military, Fast Eddie? Because I'm looking at your resume and I'm like holy shit, you did a lot.
Like
30, 40 years.
Yeah. 13
active duty.
13 active duty.
And then did you spend some years in the reserve or the guard? Is that where you're okay?
Yeah, I was in the reserves another 15 years.
So is that where, I mean, what was it? Did you do an exchange tour with the Iranian Air Force?
No, it wasn't a classical exchange tour. This is under the Shah, of course. And
yes.
Whatever the Shah wanted, the Shah got. And he wanted, there was 2 things that was going on in the Air Force. They were introducing the F4 with the leading edge slats. And the next summer they were introducing the Maverick TV guided missile. And so the head of the Air Force, a guy named General Kadabi, who was a super guy, he said, who are the best instructors at this? And that was at the weapons school. So I spent 2 summers in Iran, 1 summer teaching them to fly leading edge slats and 1 summer teaching them to launch Maverick missiles.
Okay.
But that was, yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah.
Got a picture of the Maverick up on the YouTube feed. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that how you I got the bullet here. Did you manage to nearly kill the Shah?
Yeah.
Well, so tell us that story.
Well, the Maverick training was going very well, and it was. General Academy came to talk to us, and if you called up Central Casting and said, send the commander of the Air Force over, this is the guy you'd get. He 6'2", broad at the shoulders, slim at the hips, well built, gray hair, hawk's nose, just a classic guy. And he said, why don't we put on a firepower demonstration for the Shah? Okay, great. So the plan was they took an old tank and parked it on the other side of the runway, took rattle cans and painted it black so it had nice contrast, and then built a reviewing stand on the other side of the runway. And the plan was for the ops officer of the Iranian squadron to fly down the runway, lock the missile onto the tank, shoot the tank while the Shah was standing on the reviewing stand. And so my job was to be in the reviewing stand and kind of watch things. And the Shah, he was an interesting guy. I'm not going to go into it now, but interesting guy. Anyway, he had survived 2 or 3 assassination attempts, and he traveled with this group of armed guys called the Immortals, which he copied from Cyrus the Great. They were like the Secret Service of Iran. They were supposed to protect him. And the rule was nobody got to stand behind the Shah. And so the Shah was standing in the reviewing stand. General Academy was on his right. I was further off on the right with a 1-star who had a Jeep radio so we could talk to the aircrew. Well, the Iranian guy that was going to do the demo rolled in, and the prime directive of firepower demonstrations is don't release ordnance until you're past the reviewing stand. Okay.
That's key.
That's key.
Seems like a good safety rule. That's a good rule.
Yeah. And I thought it was so evident I didn't bother briefing it, and so I didn't brief the guy. Anyway, he rolled in, the backseater locked up the missile, and I think he got buck fever or something. And so he launched the missile. The seeker lock didn't survive the launch transients, and the missile came off the rail, turned left, and headed right towards the reviewing stand.
Oh, shit.
And I'm thinking, if I survive the missile impact, these Secret Service guys are going to take me out because it looks just like an assassination attempt.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, okay, it's been a good life. But the missile headed for the reviewing stand, then started to climb and went over the top of the reviewing stand at about 1,000 feet and disappeared south into the desert. And so I got on the radio and told Major Vaezi to come around and do it again, and don't launch until you pass the Shah, And so he did, and he blew up the tank, and it was a big success. But it was, as they say in the RAF, a close run thing.
Holy cow. Oh, my God. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, these are great stories. And Fig, we've been going almost an hour. Let's take just a couple moments and thank the folks who make bringing these stories to you possible. So there I was, back from a long trip, staring down a mission-critical hunger. My stomach was growling like a jet engine on a hung start, but I was too wiped out to cook. Instead of calling in a mayday to the nearest drive-thru, we all know that's just fast food, AWOL on nutrition, I reached for a Factor meal in the fridge. In 2 minutes flat, I was refueling with a hot chicken and mushroom tetrazzini that tasted like a home-cooked dinner. This wasn't your standard issue MRE or frozen TV dinner. Nope. Factor meals are fresh, never frozen, and chef-prepared, yet ready faster than you can scramble the jets setting alert. I popped that tetrazzini into the microwave, and by the time I could set a place at the table, it was steaming and ready for action. creamy mushrooms, tender chicken, and garlicky green beans on the side. My taste buds did a little victory roll. Honestly, I was amazed that something so quick could taste that good. And the best part? No pots, no pans, no KP duty cleanup afterwards. I even radioed a buddy about the shredded chicken taco bowl I had last week. It hit with a flavor payload that was off the charts, yet it's healthy fuel, not a heavy fast food bombing run. With Factor, it's like having your own personal chow hall that's always open, serving up gourmet grub on your schedule. Whether you're keto, calorie smart, or just plain hungry, Factor has you covered with meals to fit the plan of attack. Factor leaves no hungry soldier behind, no matter your mission's dietary requirements. Keto commandos aiming for low-carb ops? Factor's got stealth fuel for that mission with no surrender on flavor. Calorie-smart cadets staying lean? Factor's got your six, with meals that keep you light on your feet and mission ready. Protein plus troopers bulking up for the next mission? Factor's menu has the extra muscle ammo to power you through. Even our vegetarian recruits get plant-powered rations that could make a carnivore reconsider. It's an entire arsenal of meal options ready for deployment to fuel every trooper's nutritional goals and preferences. Ready to drop the long pre-flight plan for dinner and just enjoy the landing? Head to factormeals.com/factorpodcast with code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box. Trust me, once you try Factor, you'll be cleared for takeoff into a world of convenient, delicious meals. No wingman required. So, there I was, flying high, thinking my retirement was locked in, running smooth, no adjustments needed. Then it hit me. Retirement planning isn't something you can just put on autopilot. You can't just set it and hope for the best. If you're not actively steering, you could be drifting off course without even realizing it. That's why pilots who get it turn to HSI Wealth Strategies. These guys aren't your typical financial advisors. They're pilots. Military, airline, guard, civil. They've sat where you're sitting. They understand the unique financial landscape pilots face, from high-earning years to the minefield of taxes and inflation waiting downrange. And here's the kicker. On average, they're saving pilots $1 million or more just by making smart course corrections. The earlier you start working with them, the more opportunities they have to reduce your lifetime tax burden and keep more of your hard-earned money where it belongs. But don't worry, even if you're closer to your Centrum Silver years, they have the expertise to help make the most of your approach to retirement. Now, let me ask you something. If your airplane was leaking fuel mid-flight, would you ignore it and hope you still had enough to make it to your destination? Of course not. You'd act immediately. Your retirement is no different. If you're not taking control now, you could be watching your hard-earned money evaporate through unnecessary taxes and inefficient planning. And listen, we all know the classic joke. How does a pilot make $1 million? Well, he starts with $2 million and manages it himself for 6 months. Funny? Yes, but humor has truth to it, and this one is painfully true. So here's your wake-up call. This is your moment right now. You have a choice. You can keep hoping your retirement lands smoothly, or you can take action and get a real strategy from people who know exactly what it takes to make it work for pilots. Call Robbie Walling at 214-538-7030. That's 214-JET-7030. Or email robert.walling@nm.com. That's robert.walling, WALLING, at novembermike.com. Because when it comes to your financial future, you only get one final approach, and there are no go-arounds. HSI Wealth Strategies. Pilots guiding pilots to a smooth landing in retirement. All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Factor and HSI Wealth Strategies, Robbie, both for making this show possible. So you survived the Iranian experience. How long did you spend over there? You said 2 summers?
2 summers, yeah.
Okay. And what time frame was that? Obviously pre-79.
Yeah, like 76, 77, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. What
That's awesome.
What was Iran like then in 76, 77?
I really enjoyed it. The Persian people were wonderful. The food was good. Wine was good. They had a drink they call vodka, which we would call tequila. But
Okay.
The whole country was opening up and modernizing, and they were very proud of it. You know, you sit around and talk to the guys in the mess, and they'd say, in 50 years, we'll be like the West Germany of the Middle East. You know, they were very ambitious, and
Sure.
It was an eye-opening experience to me, and I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed working with them, and I enjoyed once you learned the lay of the land, like anywhere else, you have to know what the social mores are. And for instance, when I first got there, they'd have a party at the officers club, and the guys would be there with their wives, and we'd be talking, and they wouldn't introduce their wives. Their wives wouldn't say a word. They were like potted plants. They were just standing there.
Wow.
And I couldn't figure that out. So there was a guy at the embassy that was an air attaché that knew a lot more than I did. And so I called him up and I said, "What's the story?" And he said, "Well, Persian wives of Air Force guys believe that U.S. Air Force fighter pilots are out to bed any woman they can get their hands on." And
Yeah,
I said,
what's your point?
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that, but anyway, once they figured out that squadron mates' wives were off limits, they opened up to us, and they all, for some reason, the guys spoke pretty good English. Their wives all spoke French, and I had never figured that out. But
Okay.
After that, we got along pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
any
awesome.
other cultural differences? I'll give you an example that I remember, because my mother spent 8 years in Saudi Arabia in the 70s and 80s, and we had a book called The Arab Mind. She asked me to get it for her so she could better understand the culture, and I read it before I sent it to her. It's like, if an Arab asks you over to dinner and you say yes, they don't know if you're coming. You have to say something to the effect of, 1,000 horses couldn't drag me away from your front door at the appointed time. And then they think, well, okay, you might show up. But anything else like along those lines that you found?
We went, the guy that ran the base was a general, and I was there with another weapons school instructor.
Okay.
And one of the first weeks we were there, he invited us to dinner at his house, and he had this really nice house. It was both squadron commanders, the chief of maintenance, the head of the base, all those guys and their wives. And the food was terrific. They were very friendly. They went out of their way to speak English or French to us. But I noticed that on the table, they had Waterford china, they had spode, they had silver place settings, crystal, all that. Tom and I had white plates from the chow hall and plastic water glasses, and stamped steel flatware, and we were the only ones that had that. And I thought, okay. So the next morning I called up the embassy and I said, "What's the story on that?" And he said, "Don't you know?" I said, "Once an infidel is eaten off of a plate, devout Muslims won't eat off of it. So they took your plates and your flatware and your glasses after the dinner and threw them away."
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. Now, they're willing to fly in the airplanes you flew in after you, but not to,
yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
But we had another story. We had there's two orderlies in the BOQ, that made the beds and cleaned the latrines and swept out. And they were two young Persian guys, 17, 18 years old, from northeast Iran. And they were, flunky butts in the Air Force, airman basics. And we got to know them. And said, how did you join the Air Force? And he said, they were in this little village in northeast Iran. They woke up one morning and the army had surrounded the village and all the eligible guys were now in the military.
Oh,
It was
you're in the army now.
Yeah, it was a draft board, and
Wow.
Anyway, they got assigned to the Air Force, and they had given us a Land Rover to drive around, and we had this Land Rover, kind with the tire on the hood and all that.
Oh yeah.
And we taught those Persian guys how to drive it. They didn't know how to drive, and so we had plenty of spare time, and so we taught them how to drive. And then as we left, they came up to us with tears in their eyes, thanking us for teaching them how to drive. He said, well, when our tour is over and when we go back to our village, we have a skill. We have a skill we can make a living with.
Mm-hmm.
So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. So, how were their pilots? Could they fly worth a damn?
There were two tiers of them. There were guys who had been flying fighters for years. They started out in the F-86 and they went to the F-100, and they were good sticks. They were some of the best stick and rudder guys that I ever flew with. And then they were like 10% of the squadron. And the other guys were, nuggets right out of pilot training and right out of RTU. And they were very enthusiastic and eager to learn and just sponges for information, but they had a long way to go.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But what was interesting is this book, The Arab Mind, which I think I read, as a matter of fact. But
okay,
in instructing these guys, you had to pay attention to their culture. And the reason being, in the U.S. Navy, Air Force, to a certain extent the RAF, you go out on a sortie and it gets all screwed up, and you come back and you debrief it, and you tell the guy, look, you screwed this up, you did this wrong, here's what there are mistakes that you made. We'll go out tomorrow and you can try again. Okay, that's kind of the way it works. If you do that with an Iranian pilot, what you got was, I didn't understand, or poor English, or aircraft malfunction, or control. They did everything they could to not accept the fact that they'd screwed up. So the way that you approach that is you go back for the debrief and you say, okay, Muhammad, this maneuver did not go as we had planned, and it's all my fault. He said, if I was a better instructor, I would have told you, what to do here and what to do there, but I didn't, and I apologize for things not going well. Can you imagine that happening in a
yeah, no.
I used to do that all the time for my students. Didn't you, Fig?
Sure,
come
sure.
on.
But
you bet.
But anyway, if you took that approach, then they came back to you and they say, Captain Ed, nope, it's my fault. I screwed up. And then you had a regular debriefing. But you had to take the blame first, and then they would listen to you.
Nice.
Okay.
Well,
how about that, repeat?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like you say, you got to respect the culture to get it done, and you get the mission accomplished. So
right.
So Fast Eddie, I'm looking at the notes here, and I'm kind of I got to know what this means. Spent time in a make-believe French brothel.
Are you sure you want this?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here goes. Doesn't it rip? The squadron that I was assigned to in the French Air Force, a base called Saint-Dizier, which is in Alsace-Lorraine and close to the German border. And in World War II, the Germans came across the border, took over the base, operated as a Luftwaffe base, and the officers' mess and the officers' quarters were in downtown Saint-Dizier. They weren't out at the base.
Okay.
And so they had this officers club. It's very nice downtown. And the Germans, during the 3 or 4 years that they were there, decided it would be a lot of fun to redecorate the officers' quarters like a French whorehouse, which they did. Okay. And I guess they thought it was, a lot of laughs. And then after the war, the French, they didn't have any money. They couldn't reverse anything. They couldn't redecorate it. So they put a plaque at the reception of the officers club, and the plaque said, "Interior design courtesy of the Luftwaffe." Okay. And so,
oh, that's rich.
And so my room there, I had crimson velvet wallpaper with gold trim. I had a gold etched mirror, a 4-poster bed, and mirrors on the ceiling.
Oh, that's great. Courtesy of the Luftwaffe.
Courtesy of the Luftwaffe.
That could be a title. That could be a title too, right there.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, good point. Courtesy of the Luftwaffe. Oh, man.
Well, thank
That's
you
great stuff.
for that. I'm going to tell my wife that story because she's an interior designer. She'll get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all right. Well, and also in the notes, so you almost killed the Shah of Iran, and you almost got to meet Howard Hughes, playing a lot of horseshoes here.
Yeah.
Got some almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. At that time, the Air Force had a duty called the aerodrome officer, which tells you how long this regulation had been around.
Right.
And it was usually a junior captain would be appointed the aerodrome officer for 24 hours. And your job was to make sure that the rotating beacon is rotating and the transient maintenance guys are awake and all that. And the guys that ran the base knew what they were doing. You didn't have much to do, but you were there in case something happened that needed some attention. And so this was in Las Vegas. And at that time, Howard Hughes was ensconced on the 13th floor of the Desert Inn. Nobody had seen him for years.
Yes.
And one morning, or early morning, 2:00 in the morning, he left the Desert Inn in an ambulance. He had a motorcade of the ambulance and 3 or 4 SUVs, and they left the Desert Inn. And of course, the media had spies in the Desert Inn. And as soon as they saw this happening, they called. And pretty soon, his motorcade was being trailed by a media swarm. They had TV reporters and print reporters and who knows. And the motorcade drove out to Nellis, and because Howard Hughes was a military contractor through Hughes Aircraft, his motorcade had the right decals on the windshield, and the gate guard just waved them right on through. The following press entourage did not, and the gate guard stopped them, and so they couldn't get on base. So Howard Hughes went to base ops, got on his executive business jet, and flew off to London. Okay, the guy that was the aerodrome officer that night watched all this happen and didn't do anything about it. Just, no, look at that. It must be Howard Hughes. And the next morning, the 2-star that ran the base got a call from the editor of a Las Vegas Review Journal. And the guy named Hank Greenspun, and he'd come out to Vegas with a much beloved civic planner named Bugsy Siegel. And and he proceeded to ream the general a new one, freedom of the press, military industrial complex, blah, 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 about not letting the press coverage cover the biggest story in Las Vegas that year. And, and so if there's anything that generals love, it's surprises.
Sure. Yeah.
And so
it helps their career so much.
Yeah. And so, the shit hit the fan. And anyway, so about a year later, I'm the aerodrome officer. And the way you did that, you went down to base ops and got a briefing on what was going on. And they gave me a loose leaf notebook of about 30 pages of what the duties were, and about 2/3 of those pages were what to do if Howard Hughes decided to come back and land at Nellis Air Force Base.
Oh, that's great.
And I was supposed
Fantastic, yeah.
I was supposed to turn off the field lights, station fire trucks at the end of the runway, alert the security police, all that. I was supposed to call the command post, call the general, alert, general quarters. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, so I read that, got the briefing, did my thing, had dinner at the officers club, went to the BOQ because you had to stay in base, and turned on the 10 o'clock news in Las Vegas. And the headline news was reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes has left London, destination unknown. And I thought, oh, shit.
Oh, here he comes.
It's not going to end well for me.
So I got out the book and I reread the 20 pages all over again. So I knew what I was doing. And then I went to sleep. And about 1 o'clock, I got a call from the control tower. And the sergeant there said, Captain Cobley, yeah, he said, an unidentified civilian aircraft has landed at Nellis Air Force Base. And all I could think of was, is it Howard Hughes? And the guy in the tower said, I don't know, sir. What does Howard Hughes look like? And Howard Hughes hasn't been seen in public in 15 years. What does Howard Hughes look like? My career is hanging by a thread, and I got Bob Hope in the control tower. So
yeah.
So I jumped in the staff car and zorched on down to the airfield, and I could see the dim outline of a civilian airplane, and the air police, security police were there. And I drove up, and there was 3 guys spread eagled face down on the ramp with M16s pointed at them. And I thought, I'm going to walk up there, and if one of these guys is a tall guy with a leather flying jacket and a fedora, I'm toast.
Right.
So I walked up there, and it was 3 guys in a Bonanza.
Okay.
Mistaken Nellis for North Las Vegas Air Terminal, And so the procedure in the book for that was I was supposed to examine their pilot's license, examine their medical certificate, have them file a flight plan, escort them, the whole thing, I did none of that. I told the security police to let them up off the ground. And I said, North Las Vegas is 340 for 7. Get in your bug smasher, take off, and never come back.
GTFO.
That's right.
Oh, man. Oh, that's fantastic. I was thinking you were going to say I was just 2 Marine captains who walked across the red line.
No.
Yeah. I got fond memories of that. Or Kunsan.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
well, how did your Thunderbirds tryout go, Fast Eddie?
Not well. When I was there, been there about a year, and I got invited to try out for the Thunderbirds. And so I went and flew with them for a week, and it's easy to do in the back seat. And we flew air shows. Yeah, that's it right there. We flew air shows at 3 or 4 places, including the Air Force Academy. Came back, and the end of the audition was you go through like a murder board, and the existing team members sit behind a desk, and you're sitting in a chair in front of them, and they fire questions at you because, flying with the Thunderbirds is about half of it's flying and half of it's public relations.
Sure.
And so oftentimes you get a lot of tough questions from the press or from people, and they want to know, how you handle yourself under verbal pressure. And so they're firing questions at me, and I'm thinking I'm doing okay. And then the commander, a guy named Tom Swan, he said, well, you've flown with a team for a week. He says, do you think you can hack the flying? And the A answer was, I don't see how I could ever be as good as you super pilots, The B answer was, if I bust my ass, I just might be able to hack the program. The answer I gave was a D- answer. And I said, it didn't look all that hard.
Oh, yeah.
Don't impress me much.
Yeah.
Look that hard.
Yeah, and there was 3 of us trying out, and Swan looked up the door and said, "Next."
that was that.
That was that. Yeah.
Oh shit. Well,
Well,
that's all right. Where are we at? Repeat.
Oh, sorry, I had to cough, so I was looking for the mute button. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One I asked pre-show, and then I want to ask about you did some work with some 3-letter agencies. To whatever degree you can chat about that, and how your experience as an Air Force pilot helped or hindered in that cause. But the other question was essentially, I was like, look, we've had a few authors on, and most of them have written notes throughout their career, kept a diary, that sort of thing. So I was asking you the same thing. Did you keep notes, or is this all recollections? So if you go through how it is you became an author, because you've had some good success, and man, let me tell you, folks, these are good books. I'm enjoying them.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you are. The way I got into it was my dad joined the U.S. Army in 1939.
Okay.
He joined the cavalry with horses. Okay. And so when we got into war in 41, they mechanized, they got rid of the horses. He went and served in World War II, came home, got on with his life. That's what you did back then.
Sure.
PTSD hadn't been invented yet.
Right.
And he never said much about what it was like to be in the horse cavalry. And when he passed on, all his stories went with him. And I made up my mind. I said, it's not going to happen to me. I'm going to put all these stories down on paper. And, I've got 2 daughters and 4 grandkids and relatives, and, they might want to read them someday. And so I did a couple of chapters, and I knew a guy that was a journalist for Aviation Week, and he wrote James Bond thrillers on the side. And I sent him a couple of chapters, and he said, people would like to read this if it was a book, let me know when you finish the book. So I went ahead and expanded it into a book. I sent it to him, and it's the usual thing. He knew a guy who knew a guy, and the book was eventually picked up by Penguin and published by Penguin Books. And it's done well. I've sold like 40,000 copies. And
Fantastic.
So that let me know that I could at least read something that a few people will read. But the interesting thing is, when you read books that are aimed at fighter pilots, you get lots of feedback. Usually accompanied by a finger poke in the chest, And
Right.
so that's been encouraging.
Need more pictures.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
man.
a tough crowd.
Yeah.
I know
yeah.
you realize that. This is a tough crowd.
Yeah.
It's, people love aviation, love to hear about it and read about it. But when you're a aviator and you read about it, there's the tough crowd right there.
Yeah.
Right.
With the books, I try to write it for not just aviators, just general public.
Right.
And then try to eschew acronyms and jargon and abbreviations and stuff like that, so that the average guy or average woman can read it and get something out of it and not be overwhelmed by, that sort of stuff.
Which is a big challenge in this business, right? I mean, it's a lexicon all its own, and we've had to fight that all along. But
we do our best to define acronyms, because we throw acronyms around like
like everybody knows what they are.
Yeah. Well, because we have a specific language to speak, and you know that. So when you're writing, that's how you got to spell it out.
Exactly.
Make it simple, or make it understandable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. I had some other comment that slipped my mind. Don't get old; it's bad for your memory.
Yeah.
I'll come back to it if we can. But all right. So were you working for the 3-letter agency before you got out of the reserves, or how'd you work your way into that?
Easily.
Okay.
No.
Next question.
Yeah. No, my civilian job, I was in international business development for Hughes Aircraft. And so I got to travel around the world and meet a lot of procurement people and military people. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Nice. All right.
Okay. All right.
So, I know what I was going to say. We were talking about it being a tough crowd, writing books for doing it for everybody, but in a relatively focused area is how was I going to put it? It's essentially this. If I'm watching a television show or a movie or something like that, and they're talking to the air traffic controller, and ATC says, Roger, you're cleared to land on runway 43 left. That's it. Movie's over, show's over. I'm out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Right.
If it's totally, off the mark, it's like, I can't watch this crap.
Yeah.
This is
right.
Do a little research. Try to make it
just a little,
right.
somewhat.
Yeah.
Just a little. I know, and that's the thing. When we see movies and aviation's involved, if it's not right or correct, it's like
right.
There it is.
Out.
There's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're writing to make it understandable and also keep it
real.
Yeah.
So, well, which was your favorite book to write?
Oh, that's a good question. The first one, I think I enjoyed doing the first one the most. And, and after that, I've enjoyed them all. I found out that I enjoy writing, but I enjoy selling the books and marketing them almost as much as I enjoy writing them, which is why I'm here.
Awesome.
There you go. Well, we're thrilled that you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geez. We've been going 90 minutes here.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that. But
no, it seems like it was 10 minutes in here.
Well, you haven't asked me the question I've been waiting on for an hour and a half.
Okay. Well,
how'd I get my call sign?
Well, see, I was going to ask if we could do that in the extra. Do you have another extra story? Because what we do is for the people who lose all sense of common sense and throw money at us to help support the show, we give them an exclusive. And
I actually hold on. I have I teed one up that I was holding in reserve here. So Jimmy Hoffa's airplane.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to
over that like it was
talk
nothing.
talk about that in the extra or talk about that now and then talk about call sign in the extra.
Well, it's up to you. So it doesn't matter to me.
Now let's hear about Jimmy Hoffa's airplane. Did it disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? Does anyone know where it is today?
No. I said I was in high school. I got a job at the airport, pumping gas and washing airplanes and things like that. And at that time, Jimmy Hoffa was on trial in my hometown for jury tampering. And he would fly in from New Jersey or wherever he lived, Monday morning, be on trial through Thursday. Thursday night, he would get his airplane and took off. And he had a really nice twin beach. And but the issue was the guys that were with him scared the shit out of me. I mean, he was accompanied by 2 or 3 bulky Italian-looking guys with suits and bulges under their arm and names that ended in vowels. And whenever I was around the airplane, they followed me. Making sure I wasn't putting a bomb on board or something, But all I did was, check the tires and oil and fuel it up and then get the hell out of there. Right. So that's it was anticlimactic. I never met Hoffa. I saw him a lot, but he wasn't about to talk to me.
All right. Hey, and also there in our notes there was some. Did you do some instructing on the USS Hancock? Were you briefing tactics or were you flying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My squadron had introduced laser guided bombs to
Okay.
Southeast Asia, and we'd had super success with them. There were days when my squadron had more BDA than the rest of the outcountry Air Force put together. And
just because of the accuracy of the laser guided bombs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of trying to hit a truck with a 500-pound unguided bomb, you could put a laser guided bomb in the bed of the truck, you know? And anyway, the Navy realized that we were doing a lot of things that they weren't doing and getting more BDA than they were. So they decided to buy some laser guided bomb kits from Texas Instruments and have their A4 guys drop them. They put them on board, flew them into the Philippines, put them on board the Hancock, and set sail for Yankee Station. And then they realized that nobody on board had ever dropped a laser guided bomb and had no idea on how to do it.
Oops. Right.
And so they sent me over there on board to instruct the A4 guys. They didn't have any 2-seat airplanes, all single-seat A4s. Yeah. And my job was to teach these guys how to drop laser-guided bombs. Well, in the Air Force, we had a laser illuminator in the back seat of the F4, which was mounted on the canopy rail. It had a 4-power scope and a joystick, and you could actually hold the crosshairs on a small target.
Okay.
Illuminate it with a laser. The Navy didn't have that, and didn't have any 2-seat airplanes. And their laser illuminator was, picture a shoebox with a handle on each end and a wire gun sight on top. That was their laser illuminator. And the idea was that they had their one TA-4J, and they would put a guy in the back seat, and the guy in the back seat was supposed to be an F-8 pilot whose airplane was down. And so you had these F-8 fighter pilots who were in the back seat of a TA-4 dropping bombs, which they are not real happy about. And the laser was unstabilized. I mean, you had to hold it in your hand.
Oh,
and a laser guided bomb will steer out some jitter in the illumination, and you don't have to hold it directly on. But I started talking to them and I said, you guys are going to be dropping bombs hither, thither, and yon over Laos, because the bomb is not going to steer out 500 feet of error. It can steer out 20 feet of arrow, but not 500 feet. And it's really hard for me to see how an F-8 guy in the back seat is going to be able to illuminate these targets at sufficient accuracy. And after that, they decided not to do it. And so they sent me back to Thailand. So
okay then.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to ask. You explained it very well. I was going to like, well, who lays for him? I'm like, okay, well, that explains it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, one other thing, and it's out there on YouTube. Is thinking of the Hancock. It's called Launch 'Em, and it was a cruise video from the 1950s.
Yeah.
Very funny. So if you know anything about carrier ops, Launch 'Em is a funny video to go watch. About 3-4 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Fast Eddie, I can't thank you enough for coming on. We've been at this almost an hour, 40 minutes. I want to save a little something for our extra.
Okay, sure.
And so we should probably start wrapping this up. Repeat. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go ahead and land the airplane, sir. We
got obviously we need to thank you for your service, sir, to our country, and you know, it's 375 combat missions in Vietnam. Yeah. That's just truly remarkable. And you have such great stories. You have such a great, demeanor and attitude. And I am looking forward to reading the rest of your books.
Yeah, please do that. And be advised that I offer a money-back guarantee with my books. And so if you don't
outstanding.
And if you don't like them, I'll give you your money back. And,
okay.
And let's see James Patterson match that.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. couple other thank yous we need to throw out there, Fit. We need to thank, of course, our man Dave Hamilton, who gave us the technical know-how to do this whole podcasting thing in the first place, and Zadie, who's doing a lot of social media work for us over at backbeatmedia.com. Thank you to both of them for helping to continue to make this show possible.
We got to thank Bago, who's in the background there, making all the pictures and words come up. Yep.
Before we know what we're going to say, he's putting up the pictures.
I know. We usually say thanks to Sticks. Also, Sticks is he has to work today.
Yeah, he's out wading in the shallow end of the gene pool.
That's right. I haven't seen him on the chat, but we need to thank Brad Silcott for BDS Aviation, all the beautiful photographs. That's call sign Badass, Brad Silcott. and then we got a couple sponsors to thank.
Absolutely. We got Factor at factormeals.com/podcast with the code podcast to get 50% off your first box. And Robbie Walling over at HSI Wealth Strategies. Let him help you get your retirement plan tweaked and organized and put another 7 figures in your pocket for retirement. Get up, call Robbie. 214 Jet 7030.
Yeah, don't be a dumbass. Call Robbie.
There you go. Say what you think, Fig.
Oh yeah, that just came out. Hey, we need to thank all our Patreon pilots who've lost all good judgment and continue to send money to us to produce the show, and we are truly humble and thankful. And we're going to have a Patreon extra with our guest today, Fast Eddie.
We'll find out how Fast Eddie came about.
It sounds intuitive, but I got a feeling that's not really it. So I'm looking forward to that. And you know what? If you want to give us a rating, you can go to sothereiwas.us/rate and give us 5 stars.
5 stars, right? Count them.
5.
Not
and
4.
If you can't give us 5,
5.
Well, you need to send an email to Repeat and tell him to tell me or Bago or Sticks how in the hell we can get to 5 stars, because we're trainable. Damn it, right?
We've proven it. They let us fly airplanes. Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah. Yes.
And you can show your pride in the show. Get some fine So There I Was merch at sothereiwas.us/merch. Get yourself a bar glass. We're working on flasks and keychains and all that, but for right now you can get a sweatshirt, a hat, a polo shirt, or I don't know, Fig, can you think of any other cool merch that we've got there that someone might be interested in?
In the Northern Hemisphere, it's starting to warm up again, and that means bikini season's coming, and everybody looks good in a So There I Was bikini, except Sticks.
Everybody of the female persuasion. So, yeah, do that. And I'm trying to think. It seems like I always forget one. Oh, those guys.
That's the 2 Air Force F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. Those are the Dos Gringos.
They are indeed. So
they were great guests. They allow us to use their music. They have 4 albums. There's not one bad song on any one of those albums.
Not one in the bunch. They lack judgment, but they're fantastic musicians and fantastic pilots and fantastic gentlemen. So, hey, and in a true fighter pilot guest, the advice we have for you until next week, folks, is stay safe and check 6.
Crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
What'd he say?
He said it's over.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
No!
Brought to you courtesy of the Luftwaffe. And we are out.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Okay, we'll cut it off there. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, we do have to get to the extra. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream and thank everybody who's joined us today. Thanks for coming in and being with us. We're deeply grateful you could join us. We hope you enjoyed the show half as much as we did, which means you had a ball. So I'm going to end the stream. And hang on, let me check the comments before we go. Thank you for your service from Dizzy. And there we go. All right. That's it. End of the stream, gents. Be well.